So I got quite a few of you hitting me up wanting me to give you time frames as far as the breeding business and how does it actually work. So today we're going to give you a little bit of insight as far as time frame is concerned. I'm going to give you the types of phases that a breeder goes through so that you can kind of get an idea and have an understanding. A lot of you, whenever you buy your first puppy, you're not realizing this. And again, this is not written anywhere. This is just me telling you off the top of my head. You're basically getting into what I want to think of as the entry phase. You're learning the breed, you're learning what are the traits, what are the bloodlines that you're looking for, what are the traits you might not want to get. That usually happens for the first 2 years because females usually takes them 2 years before they're able to breed. The first 2 years is your entry phase. You're basically getting your feet wet. You don't have any productions on the ground. You're just getting ready for your females to mature. You may have your males actually studying out once they hit 12 months. And by then you may have a couple of his productions on the ground and you're able to start figuring out what it is that he's able to produce. This is usually in that particular phase, the entry phase. So you may start out with a girl like Chanel, and that's, you know, if you have a dog that's only her age, she's about 6 months, just a little over 6 months, you're in the entry phase. These females you see right here are a little further along. They're getting ready for us to breed them later on this year. They're still also in the entry phase because they're not 2 years old. Bam, the next step that a breeder goes through, let's call it phase 2 for a lack of a better name. And all that is when you've had females that have actually produced and you're able to see pups anywhere between 6 months to a year. That's when you actually start getting an idea as to which way your program is headed. What are the flaws you actually are prevalent on, and what are the strengths of your program? What are the good attributes that your program is actually producing? This is a vital decision-making time for your particular program because the sooner you're able to make corrections, the faster you're going to be able to get on track. A lot of mistakes you're going to see breeders make at this point is if in phase 1 they didn't do their homework, they didn't learn what standard breed standard was, if they didn't learn what flaws were. It is at this point where it becomes actually very vital, because if you don't know how to actually objectively tell what kind of flaws your dogs have and know exactly who you need to go to in order to fix them, then you really don't have a solution to your problem. All yards are going to have a weakness and all yards are going to have a strength. It is up to you to make a weakness into a strength and make your yard that much better. And that's the main reason why I evaluate my dogs on a monthly basis. And that's so I could have a running tally as to which way we're heading as a program. Are we actually improving? Do I need to keep more pups so that we can improve on a particular flaw or a particular weakness? A lot of you are probably asking yourself, how is this tied in with money? As you can imagine, it's tied in with money directly, because if you're not able to produce a superior product, then your fan base or the people that follow you or the people that want dogs are going to be looking at you as just another breeder. So numbers wise, what are we looking at as far as, you know, a phase 1 or an entry level versus a phase 2? Well, phase 1, you shouldn't really be having too many productions on the ground. Maybe if you have a stud and he turns a year old and you're able to stud him out, if you're able to get pup backs, then definitely you will be able to see some productions, but that's just a clue as to what your male is able to produce. It's not really giving you a clue as to what your females are able to produce. You're not going to get that until they're 2 years of age. So one of the questions you have to ask yourself is, you know, by the time you get into phase 2, are you knowledgeable, or at least have some knowledge as to the bloodlines, as to flaws? Are you able to evaluate your actual yard and tell whether you truly have a particular flaw you need to fix in your yard, or if you don't? I can tell you right now, kennel blindness is one of the main things that will stop a yard from actually progressing. If you're not able to realize that there's a flaw, or if you see a flaw and you're consistently trying to hide it by taking a picture where you're hiding the high rear, by taking a front shot or things of that nature, sooner or later it's going to catch up to you. This is why it's important that you realize that breeding is a process. And the faster that you're able to realize objectively what your weaknesses and strengths are, you're going to be able to actually get to the bottom of things a lot faster. This is why it's important that in the entry level, you start learning bloodlines. You also start realizing who will be your resource of objectivity. Is there a breeder in another yard that could actually look in your direction and be objective for you in your yard, tell you what he feels is a weakness and what is a strength? Do you trust somebody enough to be able to do that? These are things you need to ask yourself and you need to be establishing. A lot of times when people become breeders and they're in entry level, they get awed by all these beautiful dogs and they start following trends and they start following exclusively brands and big names. And that's where sometimes you get caught, because yes, these big brands and names may be very attractive, but at the end of the day, are they gonna help you sell dogs? There's not a brand out here that's gonna help you sell dogs. I don't care how much you applaud their dog or how much you support them. At the end of the day, selling the dog is strictly up to you. I got a lot of you writing to me asking what is better, to start out with a male or start out with a female as far as your breeding program. I've said it before, I'm gonna go ahead and say it again. It comes down to your dynamic. I mean, if you live in an apartment, or you live in a loft, or you live in a boat, or you live somewhere where the space is limited, maybe starting out with a male would probably be the best bet, as having a female and then having a litter in such confined space could not only lead to problems as far as the dog not having enough space to even exercise or whelper dogs, but more importantly, it could actually lead to trouble with your landlord or wherever it is that you're at. So in order not to run to these types of scenarios, it's always good to realize where it is that you're standing and what actually fits you better. If you find yourself having more space, you could certainly start out with more females. Now keep in mind, the female's going to take up to 2 years before they could actually give birth for you, whereas a male could actually start the breeding process by the time he's 12 months old. You could actually start studying him out and you can start seeing what he's able to produce. Not just that, when you stud him out, you could actually only want a pup back in return, usually on a first pick basis. So you're able to get his best productions and actually load your yard. As you can imagine, from an economic standpoint, this makes a lot of sense. Rather than buying female after female after female, you could actually load up by simply having a male studying other females, and you're getting the cream of the crop. But there's a little bit of a tidbit with that. Because he will be the father of these females, I don't recommend that you go ahead and put him directly into them and do what is called an inbreeding. And inbreeding is nothing more when you breed a father to his daughters or a son to his mother. You want to stay away from that, specifically when you're starting out breeding. So as you could already imagine, if you started out with a male, he's going to be able to load up your yard. However, you have no choice but to go outside. In other words, do an outcross. And that's when you breed to dogs that don't have any type of relation with each other in order to open up the blood. And that's just another term for making it more heterozygous rather than homozygous. So what are the benefits of opening up the blood or making it more heterozygous? Well, for one, health-wise, it's really important. Dogs will thrive that are heterozygous because they're not going to necessarily double up on bad genes. Genes that afflict a dog with illnesses such as cancer, tumors, and so on could actually be watered down whenever you're outcrossing to a dog that may not have those same gene patterns in his code. As a breeder, what's the price of opening up the blood or making it more heterozygous? That's simple. The main issue is you are going to lose some traits, but the beauty of it is you may improve in other traits. So this is why it is important that you're able to set up your breedings where dogs are able to complement each other. If you have a male that has a weak rear, or maybe even not the best rear angulation, you want to set them up with a female that actually has better rear angulation, even though she may not have as strong or as big a front as maybe he has, and hope that are going to completely complement themselves in the breeding that you're setting up. So what if you decided to start out with a female? Well, there's nothing wrong with that. You can start out with a female. Heck, I started out with females and males. If you start out with a female, more than likely you're just going to have to wait 2 years before she can be bred. You can go to outside studs, which may charge you for a first pick puppy in return, or may want some cash return. It's up to them as to what they want for their studying service. But it also gives you the options of opening things up in the sense that once you breed her to a male, you could breed her to another male, and your yard will have enough heterozygous genes in them where you could actually line breed instead of, you know, being concerned that the blood is too tight and that you actually have to start out outcrossing. One question I get asked a lot is, can anybody become a breeder? Technically, I guess you can, but long term is not realistic. What I mean by that is, anybody that gets into breeding must understand that this is a process. It could take up to 4, 5, maybe even 6 years before you really start seeing return that you imagined of when you first started out. A lot of things could happen in 5 or 6 years. This is why I tell people from the very beginning, make sure you have your significant other on board, because if you become a breeder and the significant other is not on board, it could actually lead to more marital stress than anything else. So my recommendation is, make sure you have as best of a support system and that they're on board with you. That way, the stressful moments will be ironed out a lot easier and a lot faster, because you will have stressful moments. I know a lot of times people tell me that us breeders, we make breeding look easy. And that may be true only because we have habituated or have made it a habit to wake up and do everything we got to do with the dogs, go to sleep and have the dogs on our mind, and throughout the day interact with the dogs. And so it actually becomes more of a way of life. And maybe that's why it seems easy. But trust me when I tell you, everything that can go wrong will go wrong sooner than later. It's just Mother Nature playing her hand. The other question I get asked a lot is, can breeders make 6 figures? The answer to that is yes, you can make 6 figures, but you're not gonna make 6 figures starting out. You gotta hang in there for the first 4 or 5 years. Really until about the 5th or 6th year, that's when you start hitting the 6 figures. Are you able to? Do you have the support system? Do you have the facilities? You know, anything could happen in 5 or 6 years that could actually throw you off track. So keep that in mind.